If David Lynch had had his way, Laura Palmer's killer on Twin Peaks would never ever have been revealed, and it's starting to feel like if Vince McMahon has his way, Brock Lesnar will never ever lose the WWE Universal Championship ever. The resentment towards the absentee incarnate has grown in droves over the past years, as breaking the Undertaker's streak, holding championship gold from afar, and just generally coming off as indifferent have soured many fans on Big Brocky L. To many fans, it just doesn't seem worth it anymore to keep him atop the WWE totem pole. While those are potentially reasonable criticisms, the truth is that Lesnar has proven himself more than capable of delivering truly enthralling matches. Dating back to his run as the next big thing in the early 2000s, all the way through to today in his celebrity as a WWE UFC hybrid creature, there really is nothing quite like a Brock Lesnar match. We here at Cultaholic have assembled this primer of what we feel are Lesnar's 10 most unmissable wrestling matches ever. Love him or hate him, there's no denying that Brock lives on a plane all of his own, and his killer performances are a huge reason why. I'm Jack from Cultaholic.com, and these are 10 Brock Lesnar matches you must see before you die. Number 10, Brock Lesnar vs. The Rock, SummerSlam 2002. This was a real torch passer if there ever was one. I love a torch passer. Careful you don't burn your fingers on the torch. Ooh, ow, hot. Brock Lesnar didn't think so. If the great one, the Brahma Bull, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, was ever going to realistically lay down for a young wrestler without getting his win back in return, it was going to be against this broad-shouldered behemoth that had been cutting through the WWE roster for the past 5 months. The main event of SummerSlam 2002, which in itself is one of the greatest events in WWE history, watch it on the network, it's really, really good, we promise, saw The Rock assume the role of older torch passer, the man who would be counting the lights when Lesnar crushed him with the devastating F5. And make no mistake about it, it's surprising 16 years later to see a main event end with just one finisher. The match itself was more of a basic Attitude Era-esque brawl compared to some of Lesnar's gorier, more spine-crunching outings from later on, but it's beautifully paced all the while. This match felt like a real big-time main event, with Lesnar feeling every bit on The Rock's level. It not only solidified Lesnar's value as a show-ending performer, face or heel, it also solidified him as the future of the company, until he decided that he wanted to play American football instead, and then decided that he wanted to be a UFC fighter instead. It should have solidified. It nearly did. It nearly did. Well done, The Rock. Well done. Number 9, Brock Lesnar vs. The Undertaker, Hell in a Cell 2015. Spoiler alert, this is not the only Brock Lesnar vs. Undertaker match on the list, but we'll get to that in due course. Hold your little horses. This was the rubber match in Brock Lesnar and Undertaker's trilogy throughout 2014, and while some of those matches may have been a little bit, on the weird side, I'm talking about the one where the bell rang but the match wasn't over and it was a weird finish and I don't like thinking about it too much and it confuses me, the rematch at Hell in a Cell was absolutely terrifying, in a good way. This was not the only Hell in a Cell match between the two, but this was 13 years after the first one, which is curious given the fact that Undertaker was now 50 years old and admittedly not the spring chicken between the ropes that he had once been. But oh my word, once the bell sounded, the collective fury just about neighboured the original and may have even eclipsed it. This match was terrifying on multiple levels. First of all, we had the sight of blood in 2015, never a natural sight in the modern PG era. We also had the sight of Lesnar manhandling the doctor that went to investigate his wound, which is quite in character for Brock Lesnar, actually. Yeah. There was just something very visceral and primitive about this sort of match in this day and age, where it feels like two barbarians of another time are simply trying to murder one another. You can keep your fancy flips and dives tucked away for another show, Will Ospreay and Ricochet, you flippy men. This is what real conflict looks like. Two big men just punching each other. It's not for everyone, but it is for everyone sometimes, or mostly everyone, I guess. The ending was rather inventive, with both men using exposed ring planks as its own sort of weapon. It was a nice finish to a match that made you say, God damn, what did I just watch? Truly, when all was said and done, both men did fittingly look as though they'd just been through hell. Number 8, Brock Lesnar vs. AJ Styles, Survivor Series 2017. And to think at one point the plan was actually Lesnar versus Jinder Mahal. Swapping Mahal for AJ Styles is like getting a Lamborghini after trading in your Citroen Picasso. No offense, Citroen, you're a fine engineer of cars. The idea of matching the brute strength of Lesnar against the sprightly athletic ability of Styles was a dream match in its own right. Two IWGP heavyweight champions of different times doing battle on a WWE stage. It was expected, given each man's physical attributes, that Styles was going to get bounced around like a dodgeball from numerous Lesnar throws and suplexes and that sort of thing. It was a bit of a pleasant surprise, however, that this match was not like the Brock Lesnar matches of the previous few years. On its own, Lesnar Styles felt more like a match of yesteryear, like Lesnar vs. Angle or Lesnar vs. Benoit Benoit, a match between Brock Lesnar and a truly gifted technician, with the action seesawing back and forth and momentum shifting between the pair. It was nice to see Lesnar get out of the simplistic formula that had become his norm, sadly, since the whole Suplex City joke became the source of many t-shirt sales. This match was a timely reminder that even in his 40s, Lesnar can still go at a high level, and in its own way, that's pretty damn scary. Number 7, Brock Lesnar vs CM Punk, SummerSlam 2013. One could argue that this was Punk's last truly great match in WWE, and most certainly one of the greatest matches of his impressive career. Few monsters can play Goliath as well as Lesnar can, while few babyfaces can elicit the genuine sympathy and crowd loyalty and love like an honest common man like CM Punk, like babyface CM Punk, not like heel CM Punk. He's a nasty pasty, but babyface CM Punk, we all love him, don't we? We all wish we were as funny and as cool as CM Punk. I certainly do. I wish he was doing this voiceover instead. But anyway, if you throw these two ingredients into the same pot, you're cooking something truly special. What puts this match above so many other Lesnar bouts is just how much fun it looked when Lesnar was on offense. His frequent trash talk combined perfectly with his horror movie offense to properly portray Brock as an unbeatable villain, an ogre of mythic proportions. That's what made Punk's earnest, hard-fought comebacks all the more special, because you actually believed that he was on the verge of conquering impossible odds. If you want to see Brock Lesnar at his unmistakable best when he's not beating Frank Mir into a coma, that is, it's all in this match right here. Number 6, Brock Lesnar vs Roman Reigns, WrestleMania 31. Now yes, the majority of this match is singles matches, and this match technically started off as a singles match, but obviously it became a triple threat towards the end. But I think you'll let this one slide. It is a wonderful match. Come on now, let it go. Let it go. Before Seth Rollins' dramatic cash-in at the end of this match, it seemed as though a cloud of melancholy had hung heavy over this WrestleMania main event. Fans saw Reigns' championship victory as inevitable, and no matter how badly Lesnar beat him to a pulp, the carnage was simply a time killer before Reigns' heroic comeback. In fairness, the fans did revel in Lesnar's parade of suplexes and throws, but not as much as they would have done if they thought this result was anything other than a foregone conclusion. It's a shame then, because if the fans had been truly buying into this match before Rollins cashed in, then they would have seen it for what it was, an excellent WrestleMania main event. On its own 2 feet, this WWE title bout was a supercharged two-parter in which Lesnar pushed Reigns to the limit with devastating blows, only for Reigns to draw the champ's blood and give himself a real chance of winning the title. Powerful though he is, both in kayfabe and in terrifying real life, Lesnar has always been willing to let himself be cut down just enough to where it's profoundly exciting at times. Fans may have booed because it wasn't Daniel Bryan, but in hindsight, Lesnar and Reigns' battle of attrition was a real gem even before the unmistakably legendary ending. Number 5, Brock Lesnar vs Kurt Angle, WrestleMania 19. It's actually quite amazing that the Mania 19 main event was as great as it was, given Kurt Angle's health status. The WWE Champion's spine was in desperate need of surgery, and while Angle's pushed through serious injuries on many other occasions, even he has his limits. At one point, the match was even apparently going to change, but Angle insisted on pressing on. You'd never know that Kurt was hampered, given how he and Lesnar pieced together the sort of highly physical wrestling showcase you'd expect from a pair of true athletic freaks. This was due to be Lesnar's WrestleMania moment, a true babyface ascendance after 1 year on the main roster, and it was a match fit to herald the moment, even if you could potentially argue that the crowd were a little bit tired in Seattle. It was a big show, it was WrestleMania after all. Besides, a slightly quiet crowd has nothing on nearly breaking your own neck on a botched shooting star press. Sadly, this match's greatness often takes a backseat to the visual of an exhausted Lesnar under-rotating on the final cherry on the cake. Lesnar managed to finish the match with a serious concussion, which is actually very lucky. He could well have died. Full credit to the Beast Incarnate though, he held up his end of one of the most physical WrestleMania events ever. Finish be damned. Number 4, Brock Lesnar vs Eddie Guerrero, No Way Out 2004. Now, if your glass is half empty, you might tell me that Eddie Guerrero's feel-good moment at No Way Out 2004 was a little bit overshadowed by the fact that it was part of the move to build to Goldberg vs Lesnar at WrestleMania 20. However, if your glass is half full, and if you're an optimist, Godspeed to you, be careful when crossing the roads, goddammit, look both ways, you would actually tell me that at least Eddie had that feel-good moment, capping off an inspiring comeback against all odds. However, whether your glass is half empty or half full, and please make up your mind for goodness sake, at least we'll all agree that the match was an excellent one. The bout served as a metaphor for Eddie, whose real-life slaying of demons was paralleled by the challenge of defeating a much larger foe for a prize that many had felt was forever out of his reach. Guerrero kept the struggle going throughout the match despite being repeatedly overpowered by an insurmountable force. As far as David vs Goliath clashes go, this one felt especially real. In the end, of course, Eddie did use some requisite cheating and a little help from Goldberg to knock off the monster, but there weren't too many complaints about how Eddie Guerrero Guerrero became WWE champion. He was against Brock Lesnar, and it's Eddie Guerrero. When he cheats, it's just kind of lovable to look back upon, isn't it? What a guy. As for Lesnar, it was him at his best, using his unmatched might to keep a smaller foe in check while allowing for the hope spots and the climbing drama to happen at his expense. Never let anyone tell you that Brock Lesnar doesn't have a flair for the dramatic when it suits him. Number 3, Brock Lesnar versus John Cena, SummerSlam 2014. We've covered this previously on the channel, but it definitely bears repeating for this specific list. First of all, a quick history lesson. In his 8 years away from WWE, Lesnar's Wanderlust, bit of German there, Lesnar's Wanderlust took him into the NFL, followed by New Japan Pro Wrestling, before finding his true calling in trunks and fingerless gloves, the Octagon, the UFC. Lesnar's celebrity was just what the UFC needed, and after defeating Randy Couture for the heavyweight belt in late 2008, the sport had its biggest star in years. Fast forward to 2012, and Lesnar brought with him not just his nuanced mainstream name, but his MMA flavour as well. Fast forward 2 more years to SummerSlam, and this demolition of John Cena represented Lesnar's true return to the very top of the pecking order in WWE. I'll give a little recap of how this match went down, and although it was quarter of an hour long, it felt a hell of a lot shorter. Here we go. Suplex, suplex, F5, suplex, F5, bang, 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 F5, suplex, suplex, F5. John Cena's he's gone, kids. Your hero's been defeated in quite serious fashion. With this victory, Lesnar won back the WWE World Championship, and the face of WWE was changed forever. Number 2, Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle, SmackDown, September 18th, 2003. As our attention spans continue to rot in the digital age, hang on, whoa, just got a Twitter notification there. As our attention spans continue to rot in the digital age, blah, 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 it seems unfathomable that an Iron Man match could be something special. Royal Rumble matches, in contrast, they're easy to sit through because although they're long, there's timed entrances and surprise returns and all that sort of thing that keeps it fresh. But just 2 men occupying an entire hour, that's a little bit more tricky for our simple millennial brains to handle. Even in the olden days, this was a little bit polarizing. Just look at Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart from WrestleMania 12. Fast forward to Judgment Day 2000, and The Rock and Triple H was similarly strange. I really don't like that match. A lot of people do. A lot of people love it. I despise it. I'm sorry. So could highly physical science between just 2 men really enthrall for 60 whole minutes? It can if you're a wrestling machine, and thankfully, in 2003, SmackDown had 2 of them. Angle and Lesnar paced themselves over the course of the first ever televised marathon match in WWE history. A very risky proposition given the breakneck pacing of what was still nominally Crash TV in the post-Attitude Era world. In fairness, the fact that 9 falls were scored across the 60 minutes did make the length a little bit easier to digest. While the format didn't appear to be so TV-friendly at first, the performances were enough to power the match to the higher end of free TV WWE bouts. I'm talking the entire history of this is one of the best televised matches in WWE history. Lesnar and Angle's supreme mastery of pure wrestling, laced with a bit of the old sports entertainment, was able to totally sustain itself and enthrall an entire viewership in the process. And finally, number 1, Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker, WrestleMania 30. I'd like to just take this opportunity to remind everyone that this list is not ranked in order of match quality, because compared to some of the others we've already discussed, this Brock Lesnar match doesn't really stack up. However, it is one of the biggest moments, not just in WrestleMania history or the careers of Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker, but in wrestling history on the whole. Heading into this bout, very few gave Lesnar a shot at ending Undertaker's undefeated streak. These days, with Brock firmly in position as the Thanos of WWE, we'd probably be able to buy it, but in 2014, Lesnar seemed more than likely to just become another big scalp for the dead man on the grandest stage of them all. Of course, and please don't cry while I recount this story, that's not exactly how things panned out. Lesnar dominated Taker for the majority of the match, dealing 3 crushing F5s en route to the most upsetting of victories. Seriously, watch the match again and listen to the crowd after the final pinfall. There's a gasp of horror, followed by an eerie, disbelieving silence. People have compared it to when Ivan Koloff beat Bruno Sammartino for the WWF champion way back in the day. Apparently, an eerie silence fell over Madison Square Garden, just as the Superdome was cloaked in silence here as well. It's unquestionably the biggest moment of Lesnar's career, and while it might be an absolute gut punch for wrestling fans new and old, it's one of the most compelling things ever seen in wrestling. And that really, at the end of the day, is all that matters, isn't it? No, I wish that his streak was still going as well. No, I'm so conflicted. No, I think it was the right call. No, I don't. Maybe that's the beauty of wrestling after all. So that's our list. Thank you very, very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can follow me on Twitter at JackTheJobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic. And if you want to, you can check out our Patreon as well. Patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, obviously, to join us.